guys, my name is Jo Rogers and I am the CEO and founder of Navistar Legal. And today with our SME stories, I'm talking to a gentleman called Steven Newman. Welcome, Steven. Hi.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm very well. Steven is a consultant who supports big corporates with their security requirements, and he's here to talk to us today about his life into the SME world and a little bit about his James Bond antics in the world of security. So Steven, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Who is Steven Newman and why did you get into business?
I think my story starts quite early, hence I've written a book about it. So at the age of 2, I was actually living in Aden with my family, my parents, where I was actually blown up by Arab insurgents with an RPG-7. So it started there, really. So, wow. Yeah, it's quite an introduction to the world. Luckily, obviously, they didn't kill me, otherwise I wouldn't be here today. But little is known, actually, of Aden. So there's a big story there waiting to be told, but quite a few people died. So from that, I sort of spent most of my life in Aden and then to Germany, where I didn't live in the UK until I was about 24 in the end. So I've been in the army, where I've been blown up and shot at, and I've been in the police force, where I wasn't blown up and shot at, but I was run over a couple of times. So
you've got quite a dramatic life beginning.
Yeah,
you followed the drama.
So I suppose really not so much the army sort of pushed me along into what I do now, but the police certainly did. So hence from the police, I deal with financial crime, bribery and corruption, and things like that. So, and that was first of all doing that for councils, where I left as head of exchequer for a local council, and then into British Gas Centrica, head of financial crime for them, and then into banking and consultancy with Grant Thornton, Santander, and then latterly into the SME market of consultancy.
So what were the problems? I mean, what sort of thing? I mean, this might sound obvious to you because you'd be like, well, of course, the security. But what sort of issues come up for these big corporates?
Well, if we
you need to protect them from.
Well, if we talk about British Gas and Centrica, they had the issues of trying to get their liquefied gas from the Middle East around Somalia and the piracy issue there. Also, they had the infrastructure of the oil and gas rigs out in the North Sea or Gulf of Mexico or wherever they were, Nigeria. They also had the issue with other infrastructure like the energy plants, the stations and all of that to produce all of these. So all of those, again, are targets for terrorism. Hence why I had an MI5 contact when I was at British Gas. But also, believe it or not, people try and break into power stations and steal the cable. Right. And if you think about how many volts are going through this, they're nuts. But so it's all of things like that. So yeah, so a lot of national infrastructure. If all that goes down, we don't have any power. Big issue.
It's the big boy stuff then. It's kind of countrywide issues that are going to affect possibly worldwide, but definitely worldwide issues. How has that changed how has it changed? I was going to say, what is your attitude to risk now as a result of the work that you do? Because I would have thought you're pretty risk averse because you've got to, put all these things in place. What do you think about risk?
Not at all. I think every company works with risk. And if you don't, then you're not going to make a profit. So you must sort of think about what risk you're willing to accept, your risk tolerance. And those tolerances can be different for different things. So for instance, if we had a UK company that wanted to do work in, say, North Korea, they might think that's a bit too much, and we're not going to do that because of the sanctions regime there and everything else going on. Then they might think about, well, can we do some business in China? And they might decide that if we put this control around there and put this control around there, that'll be acceptable. So therefore, we'll do work there. But it does depend on company to company, country to country. They need to deal with the transactional risk, the country risk, and things like that. So yeah, risk is a good thing. If we don't take risks, we're not going to get anywhere.
I would have thought that national entities, like how is that dealing with countries? Because if you're dealing with, I say national entities, but I guess corporations that are important to the infrastructure of an entire country, yeah. I would have thought they were pretty risk averse, but actually it sounds like they've just got huge risks that they've got to contend with.
They've got to manage them, yes. And it's that treat, tolerate, transfer, or terminator risk. So if it's too much, you get rid of the risk. For instance, when I was at British Gas, we had some issues with people knocking on doors. We used to pay people to go around, knock on doors, and see if they'll change their gas and electric to British Gas. So what happened is that we had some people that were outsourced that weren't doing this correctly, and they were signing up. We found they were signing people up when they shouldn't have. So the chief exec at Centrica made a decision instantly. We'll get rid of them. We won't do that anymore. So for him, the risk to the public and to his customers was too much. So we got rid of that.
Right, interesting. Yeah. I mean, I guess that is the point of business, isn't it? And you're there to advise on better ways of doing that within business. Tell me about, like, you're dealing with, we were talking a little bit about the culture of risk and how risk is different in different cultures. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think everybody gets hung up on organisational risk, and all organisations have a different risk profile and a different culture. And I think what we sometimes forget is that a modern company is made up of very many different nationalities. And I think that's a good thing because everybody brings something different to the party. But what we don't do enough of is understanding these cultural, not so much cultural risk, but cultural things. So for instance, if you're from sort of the Middle East, you believe in trusting people and getting to know people, you believe in the family, and to do business with you, it does feel like they need you in your family first. So hence, if they ask you about your family in an interview, they mean that. Whereas you get some other cultures that actually don't, they think, no, we're just here to do business, shake a hand, do the deal, get out. It's more of a Western deal. So they can have issues. So if you understand the different cultural environments of different countries, then you can tailor your training programs, your control environment, your policies, and your procedures. Because a policy that's for the UK doesn't necessarily fit for people in India, where the laws might be different and the way they do things are different. Because there are a lot of countries, of course, they might have a law stopping bribery and corruption or criminal acts, but it doesn't mean to say they enforce it.
How do you deal with that? So let's say there's something that, it comes down to beliefs, doesn't it? Because I guess morals are based on beliefs. It's like, oh no, this is wrong. But actually, for some people, that's the way you do business. How do you manage that cross-cultural dissonance between it? So when you're coming in, how do you kind of say, okay, look, this is the way things are done, but actually, like how do you manage that?
There's also the losing face as well. There's also losing face. So if you go to somewhere like Saudi Arabia and you say something where they've done wrong, they need to save face. So you need to do it in a different style. Also, if you're going to involve the police in wrongdoing, you've got to remember that in some countries that person might disappear. So I know at British Gas there were some countries where we would sack them but not give them to the police, where in the UK probably we would give them to the police.
So interesting, yeah, because you think, I think my sister had an example of this where somebody stole, I don't know how true this is, but someone stole her wallet and she kind of had caught them in the act, but she didn't alert anybody because she's like, I don't know what's going to happen to this person, and this, they looked hungry and so, and you just don't know what's going to happen if they're arrested. You can, I don't know if this is true or this is but you can lose a hand for stealing, and she was like, look, I'd rather lose. My wallet wasn't enough to counteract the.
But these are all things that people need to know when they're doing policies and things like that. So important, I think, that you need to know not just your organisational culture, particularly if you're doing a merger or an acquisition, but also what different nationalities do, how they learn, what's important to them.